What's good, everyone? This is Dr. Nee Darko. Make sure you hit the subscribe button below so that you're always up to date on the new uploads as well as alerts on this show. The other thing that you can do to help build this community is make sure you leave a comment below. Let us know what you like, what you don't like about the show, and ultimately, let us know who's winning these arguments, because I need to know that I'm beating Renee in these debates. Run the tape. All right, guys. So let's transition into this discussion on United Healthcare. We're talking about Dr. Elizabeth with an S Potter. So if you watch it on YouTube, you can see the side screen right here. This is her after her third post about this. But basically, if you guys have been following, in essence, Dr. Potter was operating on a patient. She got a call from an administrator, or someone came to the operating room. She was going to operate on a patient. I think it was some type of either elective procedure, but more than likely it was an elective procedure. Patient is asleep. Someone knocks on the door and says that, hey, the insurance company for this patient is calling you. You need to pick up. She goes, leaves the room while the patient is asleep. She says she left it with another surgeon and basically started being asked questions or further questions about, this person's surgery. And in essence, they're trying to get more information to see if they're going to cover their stay.
I got a phone call into the operating room saying that United Healthcare wanted me to call them about one of the patients who was having surgery today, who was actually asleep having surgery, and, said I had to call right now. So I scrubbed out of my case and I called United Healthcare, and the gentleman said he needed some information about her, wanted to know her diagnosis and whether her inpatient stay should be justified. And I was like, do you understand that she's asleep right now and she has breast cancer? And the gentleman said, actually, I don't. That's a different department that would know that information. And I was like, well, she does need to stay overnight tonight. And you have all the information with you because I got approval for this surgery. And I need to go back and be with my patient now. But yeah, it's out of control. Insurance is out of control. I have no other words.
She goes back to the operating room. I guess they complete surgery. And then after surgery, she shares on social media this experience of being, in essence, summoned out of the OR to go and answer these questions, and then subsequently kind of documents what happened afterwards. After 2 or 3 more social media posts, we find out now that, United Healthcare is like, all this stuff that you put on social media, that's for the birds, and it's wrong, it's incorrect. You need to take it down immediately. And they are threatening some type of legal issue. So she's saying, I ain't going to be scared. I ain't scared. I'm going to keep posting. And I guess the insurance company has rejected the claim for this patient to be inpatient. So that's where we're at right now. So I wanted to talk about this because, this is really interesting, right? Like there's this fight that doctors have with insurance companies, and then there's what patients and the public sees as like, we are in cahoots with the insurance companies, but they have no idea that a lot of times we're going against the insurance companies. So
toe to toe.
What I'm interested in, there's a couple of things that I'm interested in this that are very interesting that I know you have some questions about. But some of the things that I have a question about is I'm trying to figure this out. Because there's something, guys, that's called inpatient status, and then there's something that's called observation status, right? So let's say, for example, I have somebody who was injured. They got a bunch of broken ribs. They need to come into the hospital. Usually the next day, I get a phone call from somebody in the hospital saying, hey, does this patient need to be inpatient status, or does this patient need to be observation status? And some of y'all may be like, well, this doesn't make sense. The patient is already inpatient. The patient is already in-house. No. What you guys need to understand is there are 2 types of statuses for patients when they're in the hospital. They're observation and they're inpatient. Inpatient usually incurs a higher fee, right? So the hospital will charge the insurance company a higher fee for that patient to be what's called inpatient. And then there's a lower fee if the patient is observation, right? So if someone comes in with rib fractures and maybe they just get pain medicine overnight, you may be thinking, well, this is an inpatient. No, this is an observation, but they're still in the hospital. So I'm trying to understand,
Scam.
was this really about someone because it looks like the patient needs to be kept overnight. And the question is this a fight about the patient being inpatient status or is this a fight about the patient being observation status? That's one question that I have, right? I know you have some questions, but the other thing that I was concerned about is, so for me, once a patient is intubated, right, like there's like a mindset thing. It's almost like it's like sports. Um, it's like my mind locks in, right? And I can't see myself leaving an operating room to go and handle like a phone call like this, whether or
It's
not
go
there's a
time.
surgeon there.
It's
Because
go
in my
time.
mind, there's no other emergency. There can't be an emergency with an insurance company. I can't see that happening. The patient is under anesthesia. This stuff is affecting the heart. Anesthesia affects the liver. The patient gets cold. There's a lot of
On the
different
table,
things.
he's immobile,
And I
increased
get- and
spot.
I understand that the patient is, and I understand that there's another doctor in the OR. The question is who's the lead surgeon? If you leave the OR, does that surgeon start the case? So there's a lot of questions I got here. Dr. Renee, do you want to chime in? Because I know you had some questions yourself also.
I don't have questions. I have comments. We listen and we judge. We can and
Okay.
we will. Because I was listening and I was judging. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But you don't leave the OR, okay, for an insurance call. Like that is not a reason to leave the OR. It's just not. I don't care how many other surgeons you got in there
But
for an
I think it's
insurance
odd.
call.
Don't you think it's odd that somebody from administration came, knocked on their operating room, and said, "You need to come and answer this call"? That's odd, isn't it?
I don't know that the person said you need to. I know that the person informed her that the insurance company was on the phone, but I don't know that anybody said that you need to take this call right now. Number one. Number two, she's a doctor, and at that point, yes, the buck stops with her. Like I am not scrubbing out of my case to go and talk with an insurance company person. Like, are you kidding me? I got my patient on the table. Like, no. How did you even get this number? Like,
Do you ever get concerned? Okay, I've taken care of the ailment of the patient, but now because I didn't move forward with this call, I possibly am exposing this patient to significant amount of bills and so forth.
she's not going to die from bills.
Mm-hmm.
She's not going to die from debt. That's not what's going to kill her. You leave in the OR, she under anesthesia longer than what she needs to be. You exposing
And
her to
just
all kinds of different medications that for a longer time than what she needs to be exposed to. Yeah.
And folks, just
Like,
so you know, like she got pre-authorized already. So what that means is before the patient got put to sleep, there was a discussion with the insurance company, and the insurance company said, yes, move forward with surgery. They called for clarification on, I think there was an order that Dr. Potter put in that they thought
you
was
could change the
incorrect. So they wanted
order
to change.
later, but that's my
Right,
thing is
right.
that we change
Yeah.
orders all the time. And guess what? Observation versus inpatient don't matter. It doesn't matter. The care that you give to this patient, that's why obs and inpatient is just a scam. Okay. Because the care that you give the patient in observation is the care that you're going to give the patient in inpatient status. Like, what's the difference? You ever see an observation patient and be like, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to examine the patient's belly today because they're observation. Oh, they're inpatient. Oh, let me bring out my stethoscope. Like
So you have
nobody's
questions.
doing that.
You have questions about her. What do you
I
call
don't
it?
have
You have questions
questions.
about
I'm
her judgment.
commenting. I
On her
don't have
judgment.
questions. I don't
Is that
have
fair?
questions. I don't have questions. I have
But say with
comments
your
about her
chest. What are you
judgment.
saying? Say.
Yes. She
Okay.
for me, let me tell you something. When people have I tell this to my pre-meds all the time. Okay. I tell this to my pre-meds all the time. Don't sit there taking an MCAT back to back to back to back to back when you didn't do well the first time. You take it the next month and then you take it the next month and then you take it the next month. Because guess what? What that shows me is that you have bad judgment. Judgment is based on the decisions that you make. And if you're making bad decisions, there is not a medical school in the world that can help you to not make bad decisions because that's always a judgment call. That's you taking stimulus from the outside world and deciding what to do with that information. And for me, this whole thing reeks of bad judgment. The fact that she went and took the phone call, bad judgment. The fact that she came to social media with a patient's like not fully identifiable information, but enough so that the patient knows, I know you talking about me. Okay. At the time that this thing was going on, and she didn't even make it so vague so that the patient didn't know that it was about him or her. Like, what are we
I see what you're
doing?
saying. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Right?
So she didn't anonymize
There
it
were
very much.
ways to
Yeah,
do this. Right. There
yeah,
were ways to
yeah.
do this so that you
I'm
got
very
your
clear.
message across.
I rarely talk about patient care. Rarely. And if I
And when
do,
you do, it's
it is so
vague.
it's very fictionalized. I could be telling you that it's a something something male when in essence it's probably a woman who, like you'll never know. So I see what you're saying. Okay, so you got questions about her judgment. Go ahead.
I don't have questions. I got comments. Stop saying questions. I ain't got no questions
Okay.
about her judgment. I got comments, right?
Okay.
To the point where her actions on social media potentially impacted the patient's ability to get covered for insurance. Like, what? Like, is that like, anyway, for me, it just doesn't make any sense. I question her judgment, and the fact that she's coming full and she's doubling down on it as if she's the hero in this whole thing. I'm like, first of all,
So do you think there's a
we don't
case that
need
was
to know that you're the hero.
wrong messenger, right message? Because there is an issue. I
So,
mean, let's be honest. There
there
is an
is an
issue with the
issue.
system. The question is, how
Absolutely.
do you go about doing it, right?
Absolutely. I think
Okay.
wrong messenger for sure. Right message, wrong messenger. Completely wrong execution. Like the execution of
Okay.
this thing is like,
How would you do it?
just
How would Dr.
so
Rodney do it?
so we have talked
Dr.
about patients. We have talked about our experiences with patients before on the show. Okay. And like you said, it's either fictionalized or it's so vague, you can't really tell at what point in time this was going on, right? The patient, even if the patient were to hear it, they may not even know if it was them.
It's about
Like,
them.
I had a
Yeah.
similar situation, but I don't know because she's been in practice so long. She's been in practice 15 years. So I can't really even tell if this is about me. Right. So for me, I'm just like, for you to put something out that's so specific and so public that the patient knows who you're talking about, the patient's family probably knows who you're talking about, and you're doing this in real time is very, very, I mean, it's giving, as the kids say, it's giving questionable judgment.
Yeah.
It's just, for me, it's wrong. It's
I think
wrong.
it's a lesson. This is a lesson because, you have med students who probably will see this and, this new generation of students, residents, they're way more open than we are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like me and you, we're like close to, we are Gen X. So we real conservative with what we put on social media. They're not. Like this is what they do. They share content over everything. I
Mm-hmm.
do think there's a lesson here because I think some people will say, well, yeah, it may not be perfect, but the message is right and the ends justifying the means. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the part where I'm like, I don't know. Right. Because
Well,
if
because
something
the
changes,
patient's getting shot in the foot too.
or did the patient get rejected because of this? I don't think so.
I don't
But I
know.
don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, but the fact that she's exposing this like this, I mean, if she's able to double down, what makes her think that the insurance company isn't going to be like, listen, you one little woman, we're going to double down too. And now you're going to have to explain that to your patient
Mm.
because people are petty.
Well, they telling her, yo, you putting out all the information that you're putting out is false. So I found a letter and basically saying, yo, the information that you put out there is false. You need to take it down. Um, my thoughts,
And the
I'm
fact that
conflicted about this.
sorry, I'll say this about the information that she put out, or they're saying that it's false, is that the other thing is there is no way to even verify whether or not what she's saying is even true. Right? You've taken a fight. You've taken up a fight to the court of public opinion, but you can't even reveal all of the facts to even say whether or not this is true. So in a way, it's like, well, is she right? Did she get this right? Or is she making up stuff so she can look like the hero? Is the insurance company just being, a bunch of jerks? Like what's going on? But there's no way for you to know. There's no way for you to know.
Well, I just found a post. She has legal representation now, which means more than likely somebody's suing somebody. So this one is saying that she's being
The
represented
hospital
by.
might be suing her. I
Yeah,
just think
this is very
you're
interesting.
welcome to do
I'll be
it.
paying attention to this. I'll be paying attention to this because I do think that obviously the way in which health insurance companies decide how they charge the bills that get to patients and how doctors are in the middle, like this system is really broken. I do think that doctors should be having the final say on what's going on, but I also understand that sometimes doctors they're not necessarily trained on the cost of everything. So the question is, should, should doctors be completely out of the decision making as to, what's the final, how the care is being handled for a patient? Right now we are, right? Right now we are, right? Because,
Yeah.
we have a say, but we have a very minor say, right? So if we decide to do something, if we decide to start an antibiotic, if we decide to admit something, if we decide to, whatever we decide to do, somebody or some company that's not clinical in nature has the final say on if they're going to pay for that. And that affects the patient,
Patient.
and it also affects us also. And
Yes.
then it affects the hospital, the hospital responds to us. And that's a
Right.
problem.
Right.
So, very interested. If anybody knows any information about this, any more information, reach out to us. I might actually try to reach out to Dr. Potter and find out, like, what's the
She's not
scoop?
going to talk to you because she's, what's the name?
Oh, she's in a
She's got
lawsuit.
legal
Possibly.
representation. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's true. That's a good point.
So
But
for me, it'll just be interesting. I mean, I understand what she was trying to do. I don't at all agree with her actions and how she did it. Not in the least. I think from the beginning, from taking that phone call, and then revealing that she even like, I don't even know how you tell the public. I left the OR to take. Hold on one second.
that's why she
I
clarified it. That's why she clarified it
haven't.
later on. That's why she clarified it later on,
Well,
because
I
I think
understand that's why she
when
clarified
she
it.
was talking about it, she was like, and then people were responding, and she was like, no, I didn't leave with her with one. I didn't leave her by herself. I left with another surgeon.
I mean, so we know that the patient wasn't alone in the operating room. I get that. But I mean, if she were the lead surgeon, right? The patient wasn't going to be alone in the operating room. There's somebody else there. There's another, maybe an anesthesiologist, a CRNA, or somebody, right? That's fine. But the fact that you would think that it's even okay to leave the operating room for something like a phone call that can be taken up after you leave the OR. Like, what was the point at which, because she didn't know, right? She didn't know what the phone call was going to be. She just knew insurance company was on the phone. So it's like, what could they possibly be calling for when I have this patient, right? I've left the OR before, not to take a phone call. I've left the OR before to talk to a patient's family, right? I might have a patient's family member, I tell the nurse, can you go call the husband, for example? Can you go call the husband and, I want to speak to him about what's going on in the OR because there's an emergency that we didn't anticipate and I need him to know what's going on because it's going to be a longer time and I don't want him worrying, right? I've done that before where literally I go right outside the OR. I'm still scrubbed in. I go right outside the OR and I say, hey, this is what's going on, X, Y, and Z, blah, 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 blah. I'll get back to you. Go back into the room and continue operating, right? Like that has happened before, right? But you don't leave for a phone call that is so just arbitrary. Like, no.
You ever had to leave to go to the bathroom?
No. If I've had to go to the bathroom to go to the OR, who did this? That married couple. They did that.
What if you have to pee and you're operating?
You don't. Just hold it.
I just take a break.
You don't pee. Like you hold it.
I have
You hold it.
So I've been operating for 12
peeing is
years.
for wusses. Peeing is for punk asses. Okay.
So in 12 years, I have not had to go to the bathroom. Now, I have seen a surgeon do it, but this surgeon was at the end of their career. This surgeon had prostate issues. We were doing like a thyroid case. I was a resident at this time. And he's like, I got to go pee. Like, wait, what? He's like, yeah, I got to go pee. So he's like, yeah, hold here.
Put a catheter in, yo. Put a catheter in.
Hell no, I ain't
You
putting a
don't
catheter in.
pee. You
Yeah,
don't
you
pee
crazy.
when you go to the operating
Listen, I'm going to tell you something right now. When the
You
BPH
don't.
kicks in and I got to pee, and this is not an emergency,
Catheterize yourself.
I'm not catheterizing Jack. I'm going to take
Catheterize
a pee
yourself.
break.
Get a
Yeah,
bucket.
okay.
Get a
All right,
bucket.
I'm just letting y'all know. It happens.
Get a bucket.
So, yeah.
Don't. You
All right.
don't.
All right,
Hold
y'all.
it.
All right, y'all. So listen, I'm very interested in what y'all got to say. I'm talking about you guys, the public listening to this show. So write us and let us know if you like, do you agree? Like this is right message and right method? Is this the wrong messenger, right message? Like I'm very interested in what you guys got to say because
Yeah.
this is something that I want to take a look at and see because I think I'm conflicted about this. I don't have an answer. Usually I'm pretty like I
Would you
feel
leave
like
the
this is
OR?
black
Would
or
you leave the OR?
no,
If
I don't
someone
leave the
came,
OR for any reason. No, I don't. I don't leave the OR for any of these things because like once the patient is asleep, my mind is ready, right? Like I'm ready to go, right? So like even in trauma, once, I'm going to the OR, I already call my backup and I say, hey, listen, I'm in the OR with someone. Even if a trauma alert gets called, right? My pager goes off. I'm like, I'm not coming downstairs because my backup is supposed to come in. So I'm like, for me, that's like the equivalent of shooting your jumpers before you're getting ready to play ball or whatever it may be, a pilot doing whatever they need to do. I'm locked in and I'm ready to go. And I'm not coming out, particularly if it has something to do with like it's not clinically related. Like anything, paperwork, insurance, any of that stuff
get that out of
falls by the
here.
wayside. I'll take care of that even the next day. I'll take care of that the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'll be honest with you, like I'll be honest, like the 99% of what I do is inpatient, emergent, non-elective type stuff. So I don't have to go through what you
Right.
guys or even what Dr.
Right.
Potter has to go
Right.
through. So I'm just keeping it real. But even if it was, I'd just be like, yeah, I have to answer that another time. Like we moving forward. The flight has taken off. we are in takeoff. It's go time.
It's go time. It's go time. And I just, I'll be very interested to follow this and see where it goes and to see how much more she's going to double down. My question for the audience is there ever a patient case that is worth putting your livelihood on the line for? Because that's essentially what she's doing, right? She's putting her livelihood on the line for this case.
That's a good question. That is a good question.
Is there ever a case that's worth putting your livelihood on the line for? Because
when you say livelihood, you mean your career on the line.
Yeah, your career.
Your career
Absolutely,
on the line.
Your career, right? Is there a case that is a career-ending case for you?
Is this a career-ending case for her?
Well, I'm just asking the question. I'm asking the question because herein lies the other issue, right? Is that no, she didn't give anything that was very specifically identifiable about this patient, right? She didn't say, the patient's name, age, whatever, phone number, where the patient lives, anything like that. But the question becomes, is the patient still identifiable based on what she has said, right? Is this patient still...
That's possible. I look at it,
right.
That's possible. Where I look at it is, as a physician, do you become toxic? Right. So is the juice worth the squeeze for the hospital? Is it worth having this person on staff? I don't know.
Right.
I'm not saying that I have the answer to that, but I think that they thinking about this right now. And if you guys don't think they're not thinking about this, they're like, is it worth it to have you on staff? Is all of a sudden like you pushing this fight? We're going to get more patients who are like, yeah, I want to work with that doctor? Or is it going to be a situation where because of all these legal issues going on, you just toxic, we can't deal with you? And then when you try to find another job, are they going to think about the same?
They're going to, right.
That's one thing that you got to think about also.
Yeah. And
but I think that's a really good question of, like, what was it? Like, is it worth putting your career on the line for this? I don't know.
Is it worth? Is there a case, a social case especially, that is worth putting your career on the line for? Right? Like,
yeah. Well, we got to end this, but let's leave it at that. Right? Let's end it at that because you got to bounce. I got to bounce, guys. Think about that last question. Forget all the questions that I had before. Write us and let us know.
Forget all the questions.
Is there something that you would be like, nah, Like in the what is it? In what movie was that I love? Menace to Society. Is there a scene where you're like, nah, I ain't getting out this car, even though you're about to get carjacked? Is there a scene? Is there an opportunity? Is there a clinical situation where you'd be like, nah, I'm standing on principle, and
I'm
if
saying
this
10
means career
toes
jeopardy,
down.
then this is it. Very interesting.
Right.
All right, y'all. We'll catch you guys on the next episode of Docs Outside the Box, y'all. We love you all. Make sure you write in so that we can read your comments on the next episode.
On
All right.
what y'all say Fridays. Don't forget about what y'all say Fridays.
Peace, y'all.